Great. So, welcome. Um, welcome. Um, so, the whole session should kickstart soon. Just waiting for more people to join. So, if you've already joined, can you just put your name in the chat so I can know where you've joined from and what you're looking to get out of today's session? Whoever is in there, can you confirm you can hear me? Hi, so great. Good afternoon. So, what are we looking at today? Broadly speaking, we'll be covering the UK white paper, the implication from NHS point of view, and how best you can prepare yourself as an international student. What are the things you need to start looking forward to, and what are the implications of these major changes. Um, I know over the last few weeks there's been a bit of turmoil, a bit of worrying, and people are just asking questions up and down. People are quite worried about, what does the future hold? They want to know where they stand, what are the things they need to prepare themselves for. Um, and, what I'm looking to do with the session today. Is try to create an opportunity to have a clear understanding of what that challenges are and how best to prepare for it. So just so I can get to I've seen there are 5 people here now, just so we can get to sort of understand who's joined and what are you looking forward to. If you can actually just sort of put a quick chat in the box, identify yourself and um, where you're joining from and what you're looking to gain from today's session. So that would be really, really helpful if you can do that. So before we get into it, so we have another about 5 to 10 minutes just to sort of prepare ourselves and look at some of the things that we will be discussing today. So there are numbers of topics that will be covered today, which are quite very, very important as part of the career progression, and particularly in relation to the fact that the UK legislation has changed, and this is going to have a major, major implication on a lot of international students, the way decisions are made going forward. Just to sort of be clear, can everyone hear me clearly? Right. So in the next few minutes, so the session will commence, and there will be opportunity for a series of discussions. So the session should go live fully in the next 3 minutes. So yeah. Great. So we should be fully live in the next 2 minutes, and um, we're gonna kickstart in terms of the topic we will be covering today. How best to prepare yourself. Um, Remember, you can always put your question in the chat box. Um, this is one of the many streams that comes up. We've also got various other previous streams on the YouTube page where there are discussions in relation to NHS. If you're actively interested in getting to know more about NHS, you're in the right place. You can go inside the page and actually find out things around your interview preparation and things along the line of, what are the pathway to your NHS journey in terms of seeking sponsorship opportunities within NHS. What are the things you need to do to get yourself into the NHS? And above all else, what does it actually mean for you as an international student to be working in the NHS? And how do you then get on into your sponsorship pursuit? So there's numbers of implications in terms of, coming into UK as an international student. We will be covering all these elements today. We'll try to address as much as possible some of the key critical questions. There are further questions that can be put forward outside of the group, um, um, outside of this conversation today, and you get opportunity to do that effectively. So, uh, so I think it's probably best we get started. Just being very cautious of time, and so what is the purpose of the reason why we are here today? The In essence, just to clarify, we are here today to discuss the UK white paper, which is titled "Restoring Restoring Control Over the Immigration System." Sorry if it doesn't seem like I'm looking through the screen, it's because I have another screen which I will be presenting from. So what we're actually looking at today is primarily speaking, is about restoring control over the immigration system. And a lot of you that actually have a very good background into the story around why this paper has been published now will know the reason behind it. During COVID, there were significant amount of shortages within the UK um, workforce primarily. There were, immigrations was frozen. Pretty much no one was allowed to travel in and outside of UK, and that had a major implication. And at some point, following the relaxation of rules around COVID, um, there were significant relaxation of UK immigration system, which allowed, I won't use the word, but allows a massive um, influx of people from all countries to come into the UK, particularly as a student, particularly in different capacity as care worker. And those that came in as a student also had opportunity to bring their dependents, even if they're doing a 1 year academic program, irrespective. So there were loads of changes that were made within the immigration system, significant relaxations that gave opportunity to a lot of people that would have struggled to come into UK or go through other means in order to get here. And with that opportunity also came significant relaxation in the rules around pursuing sponsorship. And one of the rules that actually gave a lot of people opportunity was the fact that the salary threshold for you to be sponsored was significantly reduced. And what primarily you were saying at the time was, I think there was a point where students could actually switch from having a student going into care job. That got changed. There was a period whereby people could actually have um, secure a care job immediately after the academic program. That is also one opportunity as well for people to get sponsorship. There were also a period whereby you could get a job of 26,200, which will sponsor you. And if you look at the period in which we're talking about, a lot of the NHS for Band 4, for example, outside, particularly in London, was significantly higher than the salary standard. So people could easily get sponsorship ranging from Band 4 roles. If you have a band 5 role outside of London, which at the point in time was about £28,000 thereabouts, if I'm correct, that could actually get you sponsored. And there were loads of opportunity for people to reside in UK one way or the other. Those that want to go through the academic career and then go through a professional pathway in terms of job opportunity, they were able to get sponsored through organizations such as NHS, civil service, and other private organizations within the private sector. But things change. Obviously, the numbers of immigration was causing a significant pressure within the UK political system. And as a result of that, there has to be a reaction to the implication. And this started right under the previous government, the previous conservative government before the Labour government came in. And those changes were effectively, were aimed at tightening up the opportunity for people to get sponsorship, which had the direct implications in many ways. One amongst them was the fact that they changed the salary threshold, they changed the rules in terms of banning people from bringing their dependents in for certain academic program. And that was the beginning of the journey towards where we are today in terms of, what do we do? In terms of how do we control these immigration, bring the numbers down. And without question, whilst a lot of focus has been on specific individuals or specific set of region, mostly Africa, there are numbers of other factors that has contributed to rising UK immigration. One amongst them is the fact that there's significant amount of support that has been provided to people from Ukraine. Number one, number two, there was just a recent report that came out that there was a massive breach in UK government data that led to significant amount of Afghanistans that worked for UK government during their time um, um, during their period when they were in Afghanistan. Um, and a lot of those data meant those people were in significant risk, where they had to significant risk of execution by the Taliban, which then meant they had to be given refuge in UK. And those numbers actually also contribute to the UK immigration number, alongside the numbers you see for that of the Ukrainians that were supported and other people that were. You also have the Hong Kong issue as well. When China took over Hong Kong, there were numbers of people that were brought into the UK under the support the UK government provided for them as part of the political refuge they gave them from people from Hong Kong. So all these numbers are, significant. If you don't understand the way they calculate immigration, you just think all the problem centers around people within African region contributing massively to coming into the UK without having any major positive impact to play. But there are numbers of factors that don't get discussed regularly. And this is why we are in a position as we are today, where a lot of things needs to be looked at holistically. And how do you, as an international student, finding yourself where you are now, what are the best things you can do to make the most of where you find yourself. And you've seen significant changes that is now even coming now under the Labour government. So there's been a change in the salary threshold, number one. There's been a change in the salary threshold, which I will be discussing today within the next 1 hour or so. There's been a massive change um, in salary threshold. There's been number two, the postgraduate visa has been reduced as well, alongside some of the changes that has already been in place. They are now strengthening on it. The numbers of significant numbers of jobs have come down, or there has now been removed from the shortage occupation list, which we will also be discussing. So all these are part of the changes you need to be very much aware of, and how best do you prepare yourself for the future. So um, let's go into some of the things we need to look at now, and we need to have a clear understanding of to get ready. Um, right. So this is the report we will be analyzing. We will try to understand and why these changes are very much needed from the British government point of view. Well, right. So let us look at where we are in terms of the statistics that has been provided so far. Um, and I suppose these are statistics that are unquestionable. Um, so, for example, you look at some of the numbers they've published so far in terms of the implications on some of the opportunities that has been there. Following some of the changes, visa issued um, for these routes, which usually I think at this point they're talking about the care worker visa. Um, you can see from the period of 2021, there was 123,000. It went up to 465 in 2023. And likewise as well, you can also look at some of these. So if you have interest in this report, you can read it. So I'm just going to go into the core element of why we're here. Some of the workforce strategy, the skilled worker visa, and raising the threshold. I want to go into the full details and how best you can sort of get yourself ready to prepare yourself. So what are we looking at? So the skilled worker visa, the threshold, for example, this is going to be set at RQF6 and above. So what does it mean? In essence, this is about you in any job that will have opportunity to sponsor you now going forward will be at a degree level. Now, there's some positives around this because a lot of the band five roles in NHS, which if you are an international student, a recent graduate in UK, despite all the challenges in NHS anyway at the moment, there are significant challenges in terms of jobs, in terms of significant cuts in job, significant pressure in terms of resources. Um, but band five roles, starting from either band four going on to band five, they are not unattainable. It might just mean that what you have to do is re-strategize. So you go from what we usually have now, from your band four to five to six. Hopefully, you can then get sponsored at using the new entrance pathway, because the current salary standard of the 41,000 plus will not allow you to get sponsored under the typical so-called skilled worker visa. So if you look at it, whereas the previous government lowered it to RQF3, which is A level equivalent, what you have presently now is a situation whereby a lot of the sponsorship will be raised to RQF6, which is your typical um, graduate level degree. And a lot of you, anyway, coming from Nigeria, many people have their undergraduate in Nigeria, and likewise as well, have their postgraduate in Nigeria before also coming here to further pursue another postgraduate. So that gives you a better opportunity to sort of put your case forward. So you will not have any challenge in terms of the qualification required for you to be sponsored. So that is absolutely fine in many ways, no problem in that area. But what are we looking at? The big increase now is how do they sort of stem all these changes to make sure that it's actually reflective of what they want to achieve, and how do you yourself prepare yourself in terms of some of these things. What are the things you need to get yourself ready for now? So let's look at this now. So, growth in visa number and concerns about exploitation of overseas recruits have been particularly seen in occupation below RQF6, which is, the core target now will be jobs that fall below the typical so-called skilled work, which a lot of you, like I mentioned before, as an international student will not have to face that dilemma because you are actually going through a proper degree process, and those processes has meant that one way or the other you've had an academic qualification of that level already in Nigeria. So if you do your conversion, it might probably meet up to it to a standard, but having your masters in UK have already secured you in that area. So now, what do we see? This approach, we see that the numbers of eligible occupation reduced by around 180 occupation, which I will also go through the list. It is consistent with the new approach to linking skilled immigration and reflect the fact that RQF6 and above occupation tend to have longer lead time for training, meaning that skills and workforce plan are likely to require extra time to be implemented and continue a pathway for growth. So, what is the extra point in here? The actual point in here, if I look at it from NHS point of view, a lot of you that are going into NHS to seek a job opportunity will be doing this in terms of continuity of career. And I think this is what the government is trying to focus on. If you go into NHS as a service manager, I suppose you want to go on to become your bank. If you start as a service manager or a business support officer at the band 5, you probably want to go on to your 6, your 7, your 8. And these are the kind of career they're trying to sort of cover as much as possible. Make sure that they are filled with the right candidate as opposed to, their typical care job, which significantly you will see the amount of pressure on the government now in terms of welfare reform to try and make sure that numbers of people currently claiming benefit, these are jobs that they should be able to do without this company requiring the need to bring in foreign workers to do those jobs for them. And this is where some of those key challenges are coming from now. Whereas, a lot of international students now need to start thinking carefully about the future, particularly how best can they contribute their skills or take their skills into a role where they can make a meaningful contribution. And I know passing interview is a major, major challenge. A lot of you will have that struggle of passing interview, but you have to persevere. You have to continue. You have to show consistency and endure. But one thing that is also primarily important, some of you will have challenges when it comes to interview environment. And you might think by not being able to pass an interview, that might probably make you sort of feel the need to sort of feel like you are down and out. But that's not the case. It's about what I will probably advise here is if you know what your deficits are, and you know where your struggles are, I think it's probably best to start taking a proactive approach to immediately start addressing them one by one. If you struggle to present, if you struggle to speak in front of people, if you struggle to actually get your thought across, if you know you lack skills and competency that is required to work in a very senior position, I think you need to start investing in yourself heavily and doing quite significant amount of work on yourself and abandoning the fact that the system you're coming from will also work the same way here. And I think one of the things I will remind you is one of some of you probably experience some circumstances whereby when the desired is not available, then the available becomes the desired. Now, it's a very difficult thing to accept that you're being chosen as a second choice. But realistically speaking, a lot of the candidate that will be putting forward their application, you probably come as a second choice in many ways. And this is the reason behind it. One, you are holding a very limited time period visa, which means anyone recruiting you will need to invest in you massively. Make sure you're fully competent enough. But at the end of the day, they are equally aware that you will be leaving that role anyway because of the limitation of your visa if they're not willing to sponsor you. So, if they're giving you that opportunity, I think you should be making the most of it by investing in yourself and doing the best thing in order to enhance your own personal development. Very, very key point. Therefore, having overcome the first order of your RKFCs, how do you then make sure that you are a competent person that is able to go forward with what you need in terms of career progression? And then it takes me to the core point in terms of salary list, which gives people discount from salary threshold, will also be abolished. That is something you need to prepare yourself for. But we're going to look into that as well, and how we're going to get some preparations done in terms of some of the things that is coming up. Like I've mentioned, if you have key interest in knowing about this paper, looking at the dates, looking at the figures, how these affect you, you can actually download it on gov.uk, and you will be able to have access to it. So let's look at some of the key things we need to clearly understand from NHS point of view, and how best to get yourself ready. So what is going to be happening? Right. Remember, if you have any question, I know this is not our typical um, Teams webinar. This is a stream. Is for me to give opportunity to stream on the YouTube. And but if you have any question, you can still always put it in the chat. If you want to give any reaction, please do so as well. Please write your question. Those of you that have my number, you can easily contact me for further clarification on any points raised today. Now, so let's look at some of the key points we will be discussing around the so-called salary threshold. So, what is going to be happening in the next 2 or 3 days from 22nd of July? I had some unpleasant experience in terms of when this new law came out. And what is this unpleasant experience I want to mention? I've known a situation where opportunity for sponsorship was already there as a result of the new NHS pay rise that was announced of the 3.6%, which would have moved band 5 position effectively to 31,000, which would have effectively moved band 5 outside of London to 31,000 and above 31,000 pounds plus, around 31,096 pounds. And in effect, that would have meant a lot of people would have had opportunity for sponsorship under the new entrant of 30,960. It was heavily celebrated when I heard the news, but unfortunately, no one knew the government had a different plan in place. And this came out in July that there will be significant changes, and these changes will be coming in from 22nd of July this year, 2025. And a lot of hospitals have already started acting upon it with immediate effect. They are already spelling it out that they cannot sponsor under the current system, which then means a lot of people will need to then seek job in a very limited numbers of hospitals in London, such as your guys and St. Thomas's, Imperial, King's College, uh, Chelsea Westminster, King's College. I think I mentioned King's College, Guys and St. Thomas's, Epsom St. Heliers, Whittington Hospital, but so those are your so-called hospitals that are in your high cost living area, where you will get another additional top-up payment on top of your existing basic salary. Then you will be able to go up the pay scale. And Lucian, for example, is one of them as well. And if you look at where we are now, what that meant is band 5 in London is now going to be going, band 5 in those hospitals I mentioned will be going up to about £37,000. Um, um, whilst your band 5 outside of London will be going up to about 31,000. That has effectively, the benefit of that has been eroded from by the fact that the salary threshold has changed from an international student point of view. So what are we looking at now? So as you can see, going salary rate threshold will increase, and we apply to new visa application as well as renewals. This is no transition. There is no transition period for this measure. Excuse me. Um, for skilled worker applicants from April 2024, the general salary threshold will increase from 38,000 to 38,700 to 41,700. The salary threshold will also increase for other routes such as PhD holders. If the role is on immigration salary list, or the person is a new entrant, so you know the criteria for new entrants. If you don't know, so there are three core criteria for the new entrants, which I can give you. So let me just make sure I have the full details here. So criteria. So the core criteria for the new entrant visa is being under the age of 26 when submitting for skilled worker, being sponsored by a postdoctoral position in a certain limited occupation, or working towards a recognized professional qualification in UK regulated profession. So a lot of you as an international student, you probably not meet unless you're you will not meet the under 26 unless you're under 26, which I've rarely met anyone under 26, but I suppose there will probably be some, but let's assume you're not under 26. But the fact that you are a recent graduate under one of these conditions, you will be able to qualify for it as a recent graduate. Those are the criteria. And if you then look at it from that angle, in terms of what you need to be fully aware of, is the fact that for you to now be able to qualify for, under the new entrant, the salary threshold will increase from 30,960 to 33,400. So, um, what does this mean? What this means in effect is that as any recent graduate, if you're not already working in NHS to a position whereby you are in your band 5, where you can move to a band 6 or move to a band 7 role, that will give you opportunity for a pay rise to a position where you can effectively approach your trust for sponsorship. What this effectively means is that you will need to then re-strategize on how you're going to work your way up. First and foremost, you might have to go from your 5, irrespective of wherever trust that opportunity comes from. You do that job for another 5 to 6 months, then you move on to your band 6 until you can then secure a sponsorship opportunity. But the challenges doesn't end there, because who knows what's going to come up in the next 8 to 9 months again? Nobody knows. And most certainly, I don't know myself, but these are sort of things you need to be fully aware of. That you will not be limited to the hospitals in high cost living area in London in order to be able to get those opportunities achieved. So let's just go through some of the points that I've been discussing with you from energy point of view. So let's go through some of the points looking at NSP. But bear in mind, I want you to treat this with caution, by the way, because the salary I'm looking at right now does not take into account London pay, especially the high cost living area. I'm just looking at the generic pay from NHS point of view. So the salary for specific areas in London are different from what we're looking at right now. So I'm not going to be looking at your band 2s and band 3, because I probably suspect the reason why you will be doing a band 2 role or a band 3 role in the NHS as someone in this capacity is probably one or two reasons. Because of your 20 hours restriction, then you shouldn't care whatever the band of that job is. You should be in there doing it and make sure you can build on the experience, particularly working in the NHS and using that opportunity to sort of climb up the ladder to different positions. So strangely as it may sound, it's going to be very, very difficult one. And I think a lot of people have experienced that difficulty, particularly in various opportunities and interviews they've experienced. So you will need to, if you're still restricted to 20 hours because you're still within the phase of your academic period, it doesn't matter wherever the band is. Carry on doing it. Even yes, I do not advocate for ACA and care job. But even if the job is ACA and care job, there are numbers of you can carry on take that job, please take the job. As long as you're inside the NHS, it's very easy for you to move to have a horizontal and vertical career progression. You can move away from your care job after towards the end of your dissertation and move into a band 4 or a band 5 role. And how do you do that? There are numbers of very important trainings you can do that will help you to progress in terms of your development. Various pathway training, various leadership courses, NHS Select, NHS Learning Hub. There are numbers of places you can go that will help you in terms of getting the opportunity you need, that will then take you into different roles. So do not have any aversion to any job. If you're still within the 20 hours restriction, it doesn't matter if the job gives you the opportunity to work in the NHS. Yes, please grab it and use your NHS email effectively to enroll on important courses that will help you towards your journey. So, for those of you that have already graduated, I'm not looking at the so-called band 2s and band 3 right now. I'm going to be going straight into your band 4s and band 5 role. So, again, just the caveat I've mentioned, I'm talking about the fact that some of the roles I am talking about are jobs that do not have that are not linked to any specific location, particularly high cost living area. So, number one, looking at the band four roles, as you can see, this is the 24-25 salary standard, which your take home would have been 1,170. But again, you have to remember when you enter the NHS, your salary will always start at the bottom of the threshold, meaning that when you enter, you're paid between 26 to 29. So your salary will always start at the bottom. And in this case, you will start from 26K. But going on to 25, 26, meaning from September this year, NHS salary will increase by 3.6%, meaning that your band four now, this again, remember I mentioned this is not London specific areas. Your band four outside of London now will now start from 27,000, and that would have meant taking away things like student loan, which I suppose a lot of you will not have anyway, which will then give you about 1,823. So you can see that opportunity for yourself in terms of where the career progression is coming, where the pay progression is coming from. And the longer you stay in the job, which I don't think is wise of you to be in the job anyway, because there's no way your visa will allow you to stay into 3 year plus. But if you're smart enough now, you can see that the salary for band five has changed from 29,000. And you can see, so band five usually goes from 29 to 36. So it's now gone up from 31. It's now in September, band five will now be 31,049 pounds, right up to 37. Rarely would you see any manager that will be comfortable enough to move you up the pay scale and justify that to HR. So it's practically impossible. So what you do effectively here is to say you go on to your band five role at 31,049, right? Which is now about 1,984, right up until then going on to probably seeking a band six. Once you have a band five experience, trust me, it's not difficult to get a band six. Once you're actually working at any of the band four, band five position, you will see the influx of interview. I think one of the major challenges, how do you get in? Once you're in, you cannot actually, it's better to be in there pissing from inside than pissing from the outside. Sorry. But once you're inside the system, you actually find out that navigating in terms of progression is a very smooth process, and the challenges is not as bad as you would then see, because at this point in time, whilst previously you will be building on your examples, talking about previous experience you have. In this case now, what you're actually doing is you're using your in-house example from your work experience to answer your NHS question, be it confidentiality, be it handling conflicts, be it managing multiple tasks at work, be it telling them about yourself from your experience in the NHS, and be it something about your leadership quality. When they talk about their trust values, when they talk about things like service delivery, when they talk about your teamwork, when you've participated in team project, so you have a wealth of experience to talk from in order to achieve your goal. And you can then see that if you go onto a band six role now, which is where a lot of you now will have to target if you're actually being very serious about sponsorship within the limited 18-month period you will be given now, you will see effectively that your band six role now, which used to be 37,000, is now going to be going up to 38. It's still far below the 41K you need for sponsorship. But what that does is you are way above the 33,400 that is required for new entrant visa. So if you're lucky enough or you're smart enough, don't let me use the word lucky because you have to work for it. If you're smart enough to get a band six within a reasonable period of time, particularly, let's say every job you do, you take a 5 month period on them. So if you go on from your band four to a band five within a 6 month period, and then from band five to your band six within another 6 month period. So out of 18 months post study you actually use 11, you have about 11 months to secure sponsorship from the point where you enter as a band four or band five. So that gives you significant amount of time to get your band six. And if it happens that you carry on experiencing challenges in terms of none of these people want to sponsor you for whatever reason, or the trust does not have the willingness to sponsor, it might be the case. Don't rule it out. If you actually take on another band six, it won't cost you anything to go to your band seven or band eight. And as you can see now, these are some of the pretty good opportunities that are available to you. And you hear series of stories from people that have gone on to from band two to three to four to five to six to 7. And do not let anyone lie to you that because you're Nigeria or because you're black or because you're someone of a specific color, NHS do not recruit into specific position. Please, that is a lie. Please don't believe that. Don't let anyone tell you that you're only good enough for a care job. Don't let anyone tell you that they will never take you into specific role. There's many testimonials that you would have heard from the group